may be seated. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
So the reading from this Revised Common Lectionary, or what is commonly called to as the pericope, which means the cutting out or taking a passage pretty much out of context so we can focus on it, is a little bit suspect, especially in our gospel reading for today. Because in order for us to really understand the enormity of what Jesus is saying, and why this question and this request is not really the smartest. I mean, sorry teachers, I know most of you try to tell us that there is no such thing as a dumb question. But really, if you look at this one in a little bit of the context, this is one of those questions that might seem a little dumb. Or at least, as I was thinking about this, and as you know, many of you know, my wife is a high school chemistry teacher, so sometimes I hear about our students and the students that she has, and how they, she gets frustrated with the ones who are either have their earbuds in or are texting, and how they go about doing that, and how they miss so much of the content because they're not really paying attention. And as I read this text, and read just a few verses beforehand and through this one, it starts to seem like James and John might have had their earbuds in, if you will. Or they might have been texting with their friends in today's terms, and not really paying attention until they get to this point where Jesus says, in 3 days I will rise again. You're like, oh, that sounds like a plan. I mean, right before then, Jesus says, we're going up to Jerusalem, and the Son of Man will be handed over to the chief priests, and they will condemn him to death. And then they will hand him over to the Gentiles. They will mock him, spit on him, flog him, and kill him. Now, if you'd been paying attention, would you raise your hand for that volunteer opportunity? I'm not seeing any hands this morning. I don't think so. But we often skip over that part. And so the song must have been done playing, and they're waiting for the next one to cue up. When they hear Jesus say, in the third day I will rise up again. And James and John's ears perk up, and they're like, count me in. I am ready to do this. And what's more, let me sit at your right and your left. That's why we are following you. These two are looking for their earthly glory. And even larger, these disciples, though, are not seeing Jesus turn this whole idea, this whole notion of glory upside down. James and John, though, get this bad rap for this request. But their rebuke, the rebuke of the other 10, is as much of a hope that they would have that place as well. And knowing what you and I know about the end of the story, I probably wouldn't request the seats James and John do, but I wonder if you wonder this too, if I would be harboring some of the same sentiments as the other 10, hoping Jesus would invite me to sit at the seat next to him at the table. I wonder if that's where you find yourself. What comes next, though, isn't a harsh rebuke by Jesus, but Jesus softly redirects their steps, redirects their excitement to other opportunities for being great. And he starts to redefine for us what it means to be a church. Or starts to really create that definition, but in the gospel starts to redefine what it is. It's not about greatness. It's about who we are as a community and what it is that we do. And this is part of the reason why I love this idea around our liturgical arts theme of once there was a church. How we gather together to be a community that supports and loves one another. And it's not about business as usual that we see around us, where people work to gain power and influence and then become lords causing suffering and pain. Jesus, in this story, comes with a different plan, a different model, and tells us that if we want to follow Jesus, we need to be willing to give up our ideas of what power and prestige are and to let them fall. But Jesus goes on to show this meaning. It's not holding on so tightly to ourselves. And in his ultimate example, he gives his life for all people. And in the greatest act, shows us through the resurrection the power that he has over this world, to rise over humiliation and death, to rule the world through serving it in his act on the cross. Jesus is telling James and John, the other 10 disciples, you and I, what it means to be great in the world, to put others first. And Jesus leads us into doing it, because we are, in our core, created to be people who put others first. And I would venture to say that this is scientifically proven. That when people put others first through acts of kindness, through good thoughts, or as Christians, prayer, or goodwill, these acts have been shown to raise people up in both other people's eyes as well as our own. Recently I was listening to a book called 10% Happier by Dan Harris, where he explores meditation. Now, Dan Harris is a newscaster on either ABC, NBC, or CBS, and one of you might be able to tell me which one it is, the morning show?
ABC.
I don't watch enough. Did someone say it?
ABC.
ABC, okay, yes. I don't watch enough TV to know which one, nor do I pay attention to even who the movie stars half the time are in any movie. But anyway, he writes this book to explore meditation, and in his exploration and delving into it, and what it meant for him, and he uncovers some interesting things. Being a newscaster, first off, he has something of an ego. You have to, it's a cutthroat business, but he shows that, he starts to realize that when he lets that kind of go a little bit, others start to kind of like him. And they even tell him it to his face. How would you imagine that? We actually like you now. That's kind of an interesting compliment. But he found it. He found that he was kinder. And others found that he actually listened to them and respected their ideas. And in a sense, he was starting to serve them. Then he goes on to talk about how scientifically, when we serve other people or promote good thoughts towards other people, rushes or dopamine is released into our system, causing us to be a little bit happier, to give us a little bit of rush. I mean, this is by being nice to people, serving them and helping them. I mean, we're not only happier and healthier, we're also led to the greater cause that Jesus calls us to. And this extends to how it is that we invest in other organizations or places, or even in our church. Jesus turns this understanding of what it means to be great and extends it to how it is that we are stewards of our financial resources in our investments to the church and other places. Like serving people, like doing kind works for them. When we bring our financial resources to the church, we say that this is important. This is where we can come together as a community to serve and to use those resources that we have for other people. To come together to support each other through investments of our time and our giving. And there's a rush associated with that. I know that when Patricia and I sit down to write our budget each month, we have our Dave Ramsey budget. And the first thing on this budget, after you write your projected income for that month or that time period, the first thing on it is your giving. Where are you going to put your resources to other outside organizations? And so we get to, and when we do that, it's kind of exciting. But the next part is we heard John Stone share earlier, the next part is we move down the list. There still seems to be enough to cover all our bills and to have a little left over for some pocket money at the end of writing that budget. Even knowing that we've given a significant portion, we are freed up from feeling like this is ours, and ours alone. We're free to see it as God's and how it is that we get to use that. We feel that we have served in our giving and invested in this and other ministries. And there's still a lot left over. And the stewarding of our resources doesn't just stop on our monthly budget, but also continues into having a plan for those resources that we've set aside for our later years in life. And we've found that we've stewarded those resources for when we do pass on. And that makes us excited too. And I want to invite you and encourage you to come on November 27th if you haven't already written a will or plan for those resources later on, to have that plan as well. It's part of being a good stewardship. We have an event coming up, and you can read more about that in your bulletin. And what that means, it's no obligation. It's just trying to help people to steward those resources well, even in our debt. And I know, and here's another important part of that stewardship, is that our families know that a significant amount of those resources will be given to the church, as well as other camps that we have been a part of over the years. This is a statement of our faith and a statement of our stewardship to give back to these ministries. And it excites us about how they will be invested even in our debts. And we want to be good examples of that stewardship to our families and our friends, now and into the future. Now, I know it's a little dire, but let's get back on track here, right? As Christians, we're called to follow Jesus. And we're called to serve like Jesus did. You and I are called to make an investment in the kingdom of God for God's sake and not our own. In God's word, to point to what God is doing in our world. Notice this week that when you're unnecessarily putting yourself ahead of others, looking for that opportunity to serve the other. Notice when you see signs of a world with priorities of the Gentiles, and what it might look like if the world had the priorities of Christ. Consider how the priorities of Jesus might impact you, even down to the places that you invest your money, and how it is you give, and how you steward. Amen.